friend.
Welcome to Heavy Metal
History.
How's it going, listeners? Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Heavy Metal History. My guests this week were Ilya and Steve, the guitar player and bass player of the band Imperial Triumphant. They're a New York-based kind of avant-garde black metal, death metal kind of band. They are probably one of the best bands out right now. The way they're pushing extreme music, especially black metal, into this new wave of the future has caught my eye since their last few albums, and I was really stoked to get to talk to them. It was a great conversation, kind of going into all their little influences and, you know, things they like pushing the boundaries with music-wise and how they learned it, where they learned it. Really informative, really cool dudes. I couldn't have been happier with how the podcast turned out. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this one. And as you know, before we get on to the episode here, we are doing a contest, a giveaway, whatever you want to call it. You, our listeners, could win an autographed poster. You can win, I have a few of these from tour. They've just been sitting around. I'd rather pay it forward to the listeners. I don't need them anymore. I'd rather give it away. So all you got to do, go to our website, www.heavymetalhistorypodcast.com. Share an episode. It could even be this episode. Make sure you tag us in the post. And however many likes you get, from your friends or shares or whatever, that counts as an extra entry. And the person with the most of those wins. That's it. And you can share it on Twitter. You can share it on Facebook. You can share it on Instagram. It doesn't matter. All you have to do is tag us in it. And that's it. Super, super simple. And one last thing, as you know, we are sponsored by Death Dreamer. What is Death Dreamer? Well, that is my buddy Scott Lewis's graphic novel that's going to be coming out sometime this year. And Scott's going to be coming on the podcast around July to talk about Death Dreamer and making it and writing it. And obviously whatever Carnifex is going to be doing here in the future. So go support my friend. Go support art. All you have to do is go to www.deathdreamer.net. Sign up for the mailing list and you will know when it comes out. I know he's been posting little snippets of art here and there, and it looks cool, man. It looks really cool. So that's all we have for our announcements, and if this is your first time checking us out, we appreciate it. Hopefully you can go back and check out our old stuff. We have a bunch of interviews. We do history episodes based on the genre. We are currently in the year of 1998. We skip around. We have not gone straight to 1998, but hopefully you guys will check us out. Thank you for listening, and here is Ilya and Steve from Imperial Triumphant. Awesome. So basically just introduce yourselves and what you do in the band, and then we'll go from there.
I'm Zachary Ilya Ezrin. I play guitar, vocals, and help with orchestration, writing and
with lyrics
and stuff like that.
Okay.
He also started the band.
Yeah, I'm the founder.
He formed the band. I'm Steve Blanco. I play the bass, keys, piano. I do backup vocals and write some lyrics, and we all write music together. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so Ilya, you're like the main member that's been in the band like the longest. You started the band. You're kind of going on that 10 years now of being a band. Is that correct?
I suppose you could say that.
As far as,
however, I'd say officially their band started in 2012.
Okay.
I had the group, but very loosely in 2008. But once I graduated from music school, that's when we started touring. I mean, not touring, but gigging a lot in the city. And then 2015 is when we started actually touring and taking it a little more seriously.
Okay.
So, yeah, you could say it's a decade. I guess it's cooler to be older.
No, I mean, I just noticed there was some EPs and stuff from 2008 and leading up to that first release in 2012. And I mean, even from those demos and EPs, just the way your musicianship has kind of evolved even now with like the current stuff, man, it's just like seeing that evolution has been crazy to me over all these records over the years.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
So you mentioned music school. That explains a lot with a lot of your compositions and how some of these songs are written. How long have you been doing that for, man?
Doing what?
Like in music school, how long were you in that for?
Oh, I did just a full, 4-year undergrad program at Gilead Arts.
Okay.
The music school there. I got a degree in composition. So, I was, instead of, studying guitar, I just was writing for orchestras and, taking a look at all sorts of different instruments. And I think that has a huge influence on Imperial Triumphant and our tendency to include non-traditional band instruments on our pieces.
Yeah, I can definitely tell on quite a few of the songs, like where like I didn't know you were in music school, so that's really interesting to me, seeing like where that comes from now, because now like clicks and it makes sense.
Also, I think that because of that aesthetic in the songs that you had is also kind of what attracted me and Kenny to the project too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because it's not a typical
rock
way of writing music. You know what I mean, for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, making a song is, I don't really give a damn if you can't present it exactly like it's recorded live, because it's just, if a song needs a free improvised, bass clarinet solo, it needs that, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. Especially, well, I mean, you're sitting here putting a lot of your energy into this music, and sure, live is one thing, but a record's another thing, and I think having that little bit of dissociation between the two is a good thing, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's cool because the live thing is a special thing unto itself. You know what I mean? And then crafting an album is another experience. So
totally. So before we kind of like jump into that aspect of writing and recording, I kind of want to start with each of you guys like influences as far as like heavy metal, and maybe because I know a lot of metal guys don't always listen to heavy metal too, maybe even some non-metal influences, like kind of what started you guys to get into the genre and want to write this kind of music.
Okay, well, I'll start with some influences. I grew up on music, and my earliest memory of music is Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring, from a record that my father had that I couldn't stop listening to as a very small child.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of scared the shit out of me, when I used to listen to it as a little kid. But for some reason I couldn't stop. You know what I mean? And that really sent me down the road of wanting to, hear dark, deep, rich sounds. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the whole rock thing. I love rock, and then getting into metal, all kinds of metal. You know what I mean? Things like Slayer. Commercial cats like Metallica that are, huge corporation these days.
Totally.
But I love those old albums, man. You know what I mean? They're amazing. And then the jazz thing, which is massive, and I think it's kind of a massive part of Imperial, at least the direction that Imperial's going.
Mm-hmm.
So I play the piano. I'm a jazz piano player, so I spent a whole bunch of time as a pro jazz musician. So, but there's just so much great music, man, in so many different genres that, you can't, I would say you'd be missing out in life just listening to one, you know what I mean?
No, I agree 100%. Like,
and there's so... Oh, man. Got some vacuum? How is that?
vacuuming outside.
Hopefully he's gonna stop. Can you hear us still?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. It's not too
It's
bad.
pretty lousy though. Huh?
It's not that bad.
You know what, man? We're gonna move inside, buddy. Hang on 1 second,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no worries.
You know this guy? Dude, this is the laziest man I've ever seen.
What's he doing?
He's literally got a leaf blower and he's just pushing the debris off his backyard.
Well, you know he's gonna stop. We can come back out when he
Get a
stops.
fucking broom, man.
We'll do it over here. Sorry, man.
No, you guys are fine.
Jesus.
I edit stuff anyway, so like if this happens
Good.
all the time with like people.
Thank God for editing.
Yeah.
Super whack.
Anyway, so yeah, I was just basically just trying to say that there's so many influences. You know, I'm speaking just for myself, but you know, the three of us are very similar. You know, so it's hard to just talk about you know, one genre specific type of influence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's important too, because if you're just so admired in that one genre, you know, you tend to get stuck is playing a certain kind of music. So, I mean, having all these other influences, I can tell they're there. You know, when you listen to your guys' music, it's definitely there, but you just have to know, kind of like. So I'm not super familiar with jazz, but I know.
Well, I'll just rattle off a couple names.
Oh,
and
yeah,
some,
go
some
for
big some big guns like Miles Davis and Wayne Shorter and Thelonious Monk, Bill Evans, John Coltrane. You know what I mean? As far as, you know, big cats, Duke Ellington. There was a record that really influenced me, actually, called Money Jungle, which is Duke Ellington, Max Roach, and Charles Mingus. It's a trio album, and it is insane. It's just brutal. It destroys. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, it's the same thing that I think that anyone who's trying to make some good music, everyone's trying to do the same thing, just different way of doing it, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to make some badass music that destroys. And then there's, you know, other more obscure artists too, you know what I mean, that we could get into, but you know, you get the idea, you know what I mean? Like just a lot of you know, there's a lot of great music out there, man. Just so much.
Yeah, that's kind of one thing we try to like pass along in this podcast too, is like don't just sure, this thing is about heavy metal, but like don't just pigeonhole yourself to one thing, because you know, I agree with your sentiment. There's so much more stuff out there that it's just like why not enjoy as much as you can.
Yeah, and the thing is, Ilya had you know, one thing that I really enjoy about being in this band is that he has a sort of he looks at the things through a wide lens. You know what I mean? He's sort of looking at the big picture. So it really works with Kenny and me and the three of us, because we're really interested in creating a vision, so to speak. You know what I mean? Something that is a big sound as opposed to us individually expressing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really don't have much of an ego as a guitar player, and I really don't care, you know, if people think I'm good or bad at guitar. It's when I'm thinking about a song, I'm thinking about the song. I'm not thinking about my guitar part. Does this impress people? Is this intense and technical? And a lot of our most intense songs have really simple guitar parts, and that opens up and gives space for the drums or the bass or whatever other instruments we're putting on to fill in with the chaos. And I think that's a huge part of our sound, is kind of, and maybe it's part of why we're a trio, is just there's more space for all the other instruments to have a voice.
Yeah, trio is particularly cool in that sense, because you're kind of always passing the baton around, you know what I mean, when you're playing. So there's a lot of interaction.
Yeah.
And you know, you know, in music school I was like coming in with a somewhat vague knowledge of classical music, but as you know, the craziest it really went was like Tchaikovsky or Stravinsky, like nothing too insane.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, they just, if you, as a comp major, you just get beaten down with modern classical and to the most avant-garde, you know, kind of level.
You know, we should mention a few composers that kind of influence all three of us, like Ligeti, Shostakovich, Webern, Schoenberg. I already mentioned Stravinsky. He's just massive influence in general.
Yeah, some on less known ones like Schnittke.
Yeah, sure. There's lesser known ones.
But all these guys, they're like, you know, when you think about writing a heavy metal song with this orchestral mentality, and you look at the guitar like it's just another instrument and it's not the instrument,
mm-hmm.
That's when I think you start, you know, can start putting together an Imperial Triumphant song.
Yeah, I like how you were mentioning, like, you know, only having 3 guys in a band. I think you take that less is more approach, but it works in your favor to an exponential degree, and everything always sounds so full and so just well together because it's just 3 of you guys, you know. You don't have any room for error with like an extra member or 2 in there to kind of get the songs to go where they need to go.
Oh, totally, man. Like, everybody's exposed when you play in a trio.
Mm-hmm.
But even though we're a 3-piece, we're still trying to generate maximum force, like always going for a huge sound, you know?
Yeah, I have yet to see you guys live, so that's what I've always wondered is, like, the records sound good, and, like, there's some really just... ominous is a good way to, like, explain some of the sounds that you guys do, but I've always wondered, like, what that will sound like live. You know, minus kind of like your visual aesthetic thrown in there too. But yeah, I hope to catch you guys one day live. But man, it just the way it's stuff's recorded.
We hope you can catch us live too. That'd be great. I mean, we work pretty hard on our live sound, so you know we're pretty proud actually of the way we're sounding and how it's evolving.
What goes into that? Like, since it's, you know, 2 different things between recording and a live show, what goes into your live sound versus the recording?
Well, there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, you know, there's for very few things that are just absolutely things we would not reproduce live. We do have a sampler pedal that gets operated, you know, from on stage, that may trigger like a choir or something that's, you know, an important element as far as layers of sound, right? You know what I mean? And then the other thing is just also the way we play. You know, we try to, you know, we're always trying to figure out how to play parts a certain way and make things sound, you know, big, and
might even be a little different live.
Yeah. It might be a little different live, but still we're going, you know, we're going for a big sound. You know what I mean?
Do you mean different in a way that like you'll improvise or play something different as opposed to recording?
Well,
totally.
Yeah, there's actually that's another interesting. I was going to get to that.
Okay.
Another interesting thing about this band is that there is room for improvisation throughout everything we do. You know what I mean? A lot of it is worked out and written and worked on and rehearsed, of course. You know what I mean? But there is room in there for improvisation, and it kind of fits the way we play. And it wasn't even something that we planned to do. It's just how the band became.
Yeah, that makes sense with like jazz influences, because as far as I know from my limited knowledge of jazz, it's very, a lot of times, like just kind of off the cuff, correct?
Yes. Inside of a form.
There you go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of wondering personally, you know, kind of when the band started off, you just had like this more traditional black metal sound, but it's evolved so far past that I can't even call it that anymore, really. Was that from your guitar playing just getting better and better, or just learning to compose better? Like, what kind of made that shift into this current sound that you guys have?
I don't think it's so much about my guitar playing, because I mean, it started out as a heavy metal band, you know, like
totally
much just trying to be like exactly like Immortal, you know, like that was my thing when I was 18 years old.
But we like them.
I mean, I like them, but we definitely don't need 2 of them.
We like them.
No, I think I just started
honestly, just like putting my faith in the rest of the band and maybe writing less of the parts and letting other people have a say. As long as they have like right mentality, then I trust what they're going to write.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, it's more of a collective composition that way. And at least in my experience, it's been more profitable. And I enjoy our later compositions more than the ones that I wrote entirely by myself in my room.
I think that's a very important part of a band's longevity is, you know, allowing each member to be themselves within the band.
Absolutely. And like,
but I have to say, Ilya does have his own guitar style that's also very interesting. You know, just the way he uses the tremolo bridge and.
Well, I guess you're right.
You know,
yeah.
So you know, there's you know, when it happens out of necessity, though, I think is when the coolest shit happens. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I've sort of started, you know, over the last few years, like started to embrace my personality as a guitar player, which is very loose, fluid, and kind of not very tight. But I decided, instead of like trying to be like this tight Yngwie Malmsteen, I'll just go hard in the other direction and just make everything just like this flowing blob of chaos with the, you know, using the tremolo arm is in my hand almost the entire set.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I'm playing a chord, it'll have some brief oscillation to it that just
creates like a warble sound that you know, we've really embraced and gotten really deep into. So
it's like, okay, if I'm going to be loose, I'm going to be really loose and, you know, make it seem like the guitar has just come to life.
Yeah, and the drums are just so insane because Kenny, he's amazing. You know, we obviously love playing with him.
Everyone in the New York scene will tell you he's a beast.
And the three of us just, you know, it's really cool what's happening right now. So you know, we're pretty psyched.
You talk to any musician in any genre in the New York scene, and they will tell you Kenny Grahowski is a beast.
Yeah.
You talk to Latin cats.
I'll just tell you that he's a beast.
Jazz.
I'll just tell you he's a beast.
Heavy metal guys.
And I'm not just his friend. But one more point I wanted to say about the, you know, live sound, because this is all connected.
Yeah.
The other thing also is that you know, Kenny will play the drums a certain way, even to create a certain, you know, a bigger sound or a smaller sound or something that we need to do as a trio. Or I'll use pedals with the bass that make sounds that you don't normally hear bass players make, you know. And same thing with the guitar, you know. So that kind of all works hand in hand.
I appreciate hearing when bands put a lot more thought into like how they play live, as opposed to like. I've known a lot of guys. I toured for a little bit with a band, and like I know a lot of guys that they would just go on stage and bang out the songs. You know, like they didn't care about how they played live. It was just like, we're playing a show, let's get it done over with, blah blah blah, on to the next place. And it's like, well, don't you want to do something different for the people that are here to see you, to experience like this thing? You know, like, because live music is supposed to be kind of like an escape. You know, like, sure, you can escape listening to the record, but when you're going to see the band perform it live, like, it should come with this extra difference, like, added onto it, you know, so it's an experience versus, like, the record, if that makes sense.
Oh, man, I couldn't agree more. I'll tell you, a thing for us also, I mean, I'm talking on behalf of all three of us, but, you know, myself, is, you know, we're trying to build a show, you know, we're trying to create an experience, you know, I mean, I always enjoyed that as a listener, as an audience member. Totally. I love when bands made a show, you know. Yeah, obviously there are bands that are really big, like arena bands and stuff, that have the resources to do crazy shows, and you know, I enjoy that shit, you know. So
yeah, that's the unfortunate thing for nowadays, is like there's no budgets to do, you know, these prolific stage shows where you have like animatronics and people dressed up and fire and, you know, the Iron Maiden Dio kind of stuff. But that had its day, you know. You kind of have to adapt to what you have at your disposal nowadays, you know, versus playing like 2,000-3,000 cap venue or like a, you know, 500 cap venue. It's just like, what can we make work in this space, and how do we make it so it's memorable for the people that come to see us, can go back and talk about it years from now, be like, hey, remember the time I saw Imperial Triumphant and they did this? How cool was that?
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, you gotta, in jazz we call it playing to the room.
Mm-hmm.
So, but even with that being said, we still are trying to build the show inside of whatever confines or whatever resources or whatever level we're at. We're going to keep trying to build the show. You know what I mean?
Now, does that kind of go into your guys' visual aesthetic that you've kind of like developed over these past few years with like, I love this like new kind of metropolis look you guys have going on with all the gold and like elegance and regal, but still ominous look with it. Like how did that start?
I think it really, I actually mentioned this in another interview. I'll just brush. It's like, essentially, anything you wear on stage is technically a stage costume.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're a band that just goes up in the street clothes they're wearing, like a t-shirt and jeans and sneakers, that's your stage costume, and that's how people are going to see you, and that's how they're going to associate with your music, because you're not performing behind in an orchestra pit or behind a curtain. You're performing in front of people. And we thought about it, and we wanted to think about what is the best visual representation of our music and our sort of branding and sort of visual aesthetic. What would look good, what is different than spikes and corpse paint. I mean, that stuff's cool, no doubt, but it just doesn't. It's not us.
We're not discounting any of that. It's just we're trying to do our own thing.
Totally.
Yeah, we want something unique and something that feels true to us, because the audience is smart and they can sense authenticity.
They know that we're not from the Norwegian woods.
Yeah.
And
they recognize real.
They know we didn't grow up in the forest in northern Norway. Yeah.
So I think that's where it started, and we started playing around with the idea of masks and, pulling from inspiration like the movies like Metropolis and Eyes Wide Shut and these, dark, metropolitan, mysterious concepts. And that's so we've been developing these golden masks, and now they've started to take on new characteristics, and basically it's just going to be constantly evolving and getting kind of deeper into that sort of.
Yeah. I mean, that actually brings me to another point real quick. Cinematic is another way that we like to think, because the three of us are into some deep films, and so that I think the music kind of reflects that too.
Yeah. What kind of films are you guys into? I'm into a lot of stuff like that myself too, so I'm curious too.
Oh man, we're into so many different kinds of films. I mean, things like, are you familiar with Andrei Tarkovsky, the Russian filmmaker?
No, I'm not.
Oh man, he made a film called Solaris.
I've heard of that movie.
My favorite of his films is The Mirror, which is super deep, rich experience, super dark, incredible. We're into a lot of dark films. Taxi Driver.
Yeah. You guys into Gaspar Noé?
Oh yeah, Gaspar Noé. Yeah,
Oh,
some of his work. Yeah.
Great. Also Kubrick.
Kubrick, yeah, is a huge. Of course, I actually just went to see 2001's 50th anniversary this year, and I just went to see the original 70mm unrestored print at this huge theater here in the city, and it was absolutely amazing, man.
Damn, that's cool.
It was cool, Dustin. I mean, Kubrick, of course, you can't deny that guy. You know what I mean? He's like the Michelangelo of the 20th century.
Yeah, I love hearing like his little idiosyncrasies of like filming a movie and making somebody do a take like 100 times until it's perfect, and then even then he's still like, no, wait, I gotta change this can.
Yes, Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Yeah, I think these films also all have big influence on the visual and also, sound of the band, which I think also plays hand in hand with, drawing non-metal influence into your music.
Yeah, and also a lot of film, earlier films from the mid 20th century, or around that mid-century time too. Because was some great stuff made, like Sunset Boulevard from Billy Wilder, Ingmar Bergman. I don't know if you're hip to his films, but to me, he's very metal.
Yeah, I've only seen like one of his movies, but it was so long ago I don't remember.
Oh man, that shit is brutal, man. Like sinister dark. You know what I mean?
I have to revisit some of that stuff because I'm always like, I feel like I get in these ruts with movies where it's like I forget that there's older stuff that I haven't seen, or I've seen once when I was too young to like really get it, and now like, I should try again, because I know another one that like I didn't like for the longest time when I was like, to be fair, I was like 18, 19, but I didn't like Jodorowsky's movies for a long time.
Oh yeah, Jodorowsky. You mean like a mountain, like Holy Mountain?
Yeah, El Topo.
That's a great. I just did a live score to that one with a friend of mine.
That's awesome. Yeah, that dude's like super eccentric and weird. I would have loved to see like he did that documentary where it was like when he was gonna make Dune. I would have loved to see whatever that version of Dune was gonna be.
Yeah. I didn't see that documentary, but I know that he was gonna make Dune, and then they got Lynch.
Yeah. I think
David Lynch, by the way, another great filmmaker.
Yeah, man, with that last season of Twin Peaks, that was some of the darkest shit I'd seen in a while, especially like where Twin Peaks kind of started. It was very like hapless and on the nose, and then just this past season was like it was nothing but dark, felt like.
Yeah, he's another one. And then P.T. Anderson, I'm a kind of like his films too, like Boogie Nights and There Will Be Blood. I don't know if you've seen that one. But I love that movie. Great movie.
Yeah, I think.
But there's
got
so many.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, there's so many, man. You know what I mean? So many great films.
Yeah. Dude, that's what I was saying. Like, that's another thing I'm into, like, is movies and music and art. That's kind of like what I enjoy. But I guess to change gears back to the band here, one thing that I've always kind of wondered, especially with like, and maybe I don't know if you guys can really speak to this, but there's always been this weird divide, and you kind of mentioned it a minute ago, but like there's like American black metal, and then there's Norwegian black metal, and there's always been this weird divide, and you have some American bands that want to stick to the Norwegian roots and wear the corpse paint and just be super underground, and then I feel like you have this other subset of American black metal that want to elevate the genre beyond what it started out as to like a whole nother thing that I don't even really know if you can call it black metal anymore. It's still evil and sinister sounding, it's got the spirit, but man, it's just, it's taking it in a whole nother direction. I think you guys are definitely one of those bands that are pushing it into something else.
Oh, well, thanks, man. I don't think that we're necessarily thinking about it that way, because we are huge fans of what you would consider, real black metal as well. Mm-hmm. We did a tour with a band from Norway called Norgevel, and their set kicked our ass every night. We enjoyed every note. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, they're from Norway.
And
so they did it better than any other American.
Yeah, they just fucking killed it, man. They killed it. You know what I mean?
It's just like you have to be true to yourself and and write about what you know, because, like I said before, the audience can sense authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also, it's 2018. There is so much music at this point in modern civilization. You know what I mean? So, I think, we're just making music. It just happens to be that we're influenced by a black metal and things like that.
Yeah, I think what probably the reason why publicists and journalists will label us as a black metal band is because there are strong connections to music that's dark,
mm-hmm.
and has a
sinister atmosphere, and as well as there's a big theatrical and visual element to it. And there's, we have very strong branding and themes that we play with. So it is kind of, like black metal in that sense.
Yeah.
So I think but we don't think about it like in, America versus Norway or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get what you're saying, though. It's true what you're talking about, But like anything, it's very hard for nobody wants to categorize themselves, right? It's like kind of an old joke, but it's hard to just say that when you're making music. I don't know. I don't think we're really thinking too much about that.
I will say this though. There was the huge explosion of, black metal in the 90s coming from Norway.
Yeah.
But it didn't start there, and also it evolved from another, less extreme version in the 80s. So why not have in 2018 an evolved version in New York City, I
mean, you could even argue it goes back to the 70s, really. You know what I mean? If you really, I mean, you've been looking at it, Dustin, right, with your podcast.
Yeah.
You probably find all kinds of stuff that we don't even know about.
I think all music needs to evolve unless you're in a cover band.
Yeah, right.
Well, like, why wouldn't you write something different? It doesn't make any sense.
It's funny you say that, but a lot of times we've noticed, like, when doing a lot of this stuff and doing research and listening to all these bands and all these records, you kind of realize that there's some bands that sound just so generic, and you kind of have to think, and maybe you guys can disagree with me here, maybe you need bands like that to make all the better bands stand out. You have to have some of these just generic as fuck, no boundary pushing bands, so that way the ones that do come around and do that, you're like, oh, that's why I needed to listen to this genre of music, because this band is pushing it into this other thing, whereas this band is just doing what's popular, or not that there's anything wrong with that. I get why bands want to do that, but
the thing is, unless they're doing what they want to do, musicians should play the music they want to play, and if it sounds the same as 1,000 other bands, but that's what they want to do, that's cool,
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're at with it. We're like, well, it doesn't matter if it sounds like generic or whatever. It needs to be there, because it's kind of like a little divide and a little reminder of, like, look, man, some people just want to play simple stuff because that's what makes them happy, and then other people want to be boundary pushing because that's what gets them going.
Yeah, Dustin, check it out, man. I mean, I've seen a glam band, a friend of mine has that. I'm not into that music, but
yeah,
they're great. They're great. You know what I mean? Like when they put on a show, it's amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything new though, or anything like that. But
that's the great part about it too, man. Is like some of those bands have incredible musicians in them too, and then they just want to play like simple stuff, but on the side, like, they just show off that they're like these crazy guitar players or like good writers, and that's always really interesting to me too.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, yeah, it's just also kind of like, I think, I don't know, I read some interview with another band that the guy said something interesting. He said that your first record you put out is usually the record that just sounds like all your influences.
Well, because Picasso, I think it was that he said, good artists imitate, great artists steal.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So if we think about what that means, you could I'll use The Rite of Spring as an example just because I know the piece so well. I mean, I'm an expert in it. Stravinsky, he took all that, direct lifted a lot of the stuff in that. Some of it was Lithuanian children's melodies from this little book that he had, which is those simple 5-note melodies that became legendary, and then the harmonies and all that he took from Debussy. But what he did with it is what's so amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so he took the other influences and fused them into like this one new thing, and then that one new thing spawns something else that somebody kind of rips off, so to speak.
Exactly, and then hopefully someone else will take that and take it to another level, et cetera, and so on.
That's definitely the level we're on.
Yeah, we all three of us have a lot of the same influences, but also different influences too. So
I steal so many of my ideas.
Yeah, because the things that we really like. You can't help it. You know what I mean? When something hits you hard, you sometimes you just can never get over it.
Yeah, like there's a section in this new song we have called Lower World that I was listening to the Requiem by Alfred Schnittke, and this one section I was just like, wow, I want to do exactly that, but I'll do it with guitar, with added guitar and good bass and drums, and I just kind of copied exactly that, but it obviously sounds completely different because we did it our way, but I think that's the proper way to steal.
Yeah, no, I've read about a couple bands doing that too, where they'll take like classic compositions, put them in their music, but like play it a little different or add some stuff around it, and it, sure, somebody eventually be like, oh, it was inspired by this piece, from however long ago, and it's like, oh, okay, well that makes a lot more sense now. And like, this is the weird thing too with like music that old, and before like copyright existed and stuff like that, like who's really to say if it's stealing at this point, I guess.
Well, yeah, I just mean, theoretically stealing.
Inspired by, yeah.
Intellectual property theft is what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Not necessarily, it's out there. It's out there for all of us to enjoy and utilize and do what we got to do with it,
Yeah. When you guys are like writing stuff, it feels like everything's a lot more cohesive than it was in the early days. Like I guess we'll kind of get into the new record here in a minute, but let's just say, for the sake of like on a past record, has that kind of, I don't want to say writing style, but when you guys get together to make a song, or maybe somebody starts a piece and then you guys kind of go from there, like how does that kind of start up with you guys, and has it changed since then?
I think it's changed drastically. As I mentioned before, I'm the founder, and I started the band with basically borrowing Piron's rhythm section. And
actually, I reminded you that you were the founder.
That's right. That's correct. And I was writing all the songs, and I don't really like creating music like that because I don't think I'm a genius, and I don't think I have all the answers. And with this new record, there was a lot of times where I'd come in with an idea, and the guys would be like, that's not a good idea, or like, let's do it differently, let's do it this way. And I go, okay, I'm glad that I have someone to, check me and make it so that it's more filtered and more refined. Because now all of our ideas are passing through each other, and there's this greater kind of writing trio that instead of just one guy's idea.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you exist in a vacuum, when you're trying to create something, that is very difficult. It's nice to have somebody to bounce your idea off of. You know what I mean? Because usually three heads are better than one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As long as everybody's on the same page or a similar page, obviously, I'm pointing out the obvious, but
we're all moving in the same direction, and we all kind of know what we want it to sound like. So we're just helping each other achieve those sounds. And writing this new record was a huge process, and it was very rigorous at times because someone might come in with an idea that is really, really tricky to play, especially as a trio, and we would spend a whole rehearsal just working on one section of a song.
Yeah, like 4 bars of a piece.
4 bars just over and over and over, and it's tight.
But that's all part of the process, and that's how it works, And for the song that's out right now, and from the video, Kenny wrote that song and basically brought that to us, and then we kind of just filled it in and
It took us 6 months to learn that song.
and did it. You know what I'm saying? So
that was the hardest song on the album.
But the rest of the album is pretty much collectively written, I would say. You know what I mean? Like everybody, each of us brings things in, you know, and it also depends on time, and you know, everyone's also doing other things, you know. So, but writing as a band, for me personally, has always been my favorite.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that like you guys are all on the same page like that, because I've seen where it's like one or two people controlling everything in the band, and that's fine too, because that works for them. But it's when you know that the whole group is collectively in on it, it feels, you can feel it through the music. And you know, you guys talked about authenticity. You can tell that everybody's on the same page and going in the direction that they all want to go in. Whereas like sometimes if you can tell there's like an outside force in there, it shows up in the music, I think, if you're really listening anyways. You know, if you're just passively listening, I'm sure maybe it would fly by like your regular listener or something like that. But I tend to really, really listen to music and try to figure out like where things are coming from, and you know, like parts written and stuff like that. You know, just dissect it a little bit more than just face value.
Righteous.
Absolutely.
So
that's the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I passively listen to stuff too, because it's just like I just want to listen to a record and, you know, something I've heard for 10 years now or whatever. But
yeah.
So I guess that's a good segue into the new record, because that's what I want to know about. I'm sure people listening want to hear about, since it's going to be out this year. I guess kind of when did the writing process start for it? Because I know it's been about 3 years or so since the last record, and you guys put an EP out in between that time as well.
Yes, we did. It took
late 2006.
Yeah, basically from the time we started working on it till the time that it's getting released, which is July coming up, it's about 2 years.
Dang.
So you know, you can kind of fill in the blanks with your imagination, you know, with all things. And we also, you know, did some tours in between. And
I will say this though, I think that personally, after we released Abyssal Gods, I felt really drained. Like I just didn't have like another full length in me.
Okay.
And then we put together Alceste, which was just like kind of a concept EP, and came out very organically. And then right about the time we finished Alceste, I started to feel, okay, I got a whole bunch of ideas, concepts, riffs. I want to like now I feel ready to start piecing things together.
Yeah, you know, it was a very, you know, to use the word again, very organic process writing Vile Luxury. And you know, I think the writing aspect of it, you know, I say we did it over the course of about 9-10 months.
I mean, that's going to be hard too when you're battling something like that, where you're not like super creatively inclined at the moment, and you also don't want to force it, because then the product could be not the greatest. And you know, I think every artist should put their 100% effort into it, you know, whether they want to or not. But so that's kind of good hearing that you like gave it that time a little bit to just kind of like build back up, and then when it did, you kind of capitalized on it, and now here we are, you know, with the imminent release of Vile Luxury, and everything kind of came together in 9 months, and that's not bad. 9 months it's a pretty good time to get everything written, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it felt pretty fast considering, you know, the kind of album it is.
What's some of like kind of the, you know, you mentioned like all kinds of different instruments and orchestral stuff on there. Like what's some different stuff on this record as opposed to the last one that you've kind of added or branched out to kind of build this sound up that you guys are really honing in?
I'd say one thing of the, you know, multiple instruments that we have on there is a full brass ensemble.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
That's actually in the song that's released for the video.
Swimming Opulence record.
Okay.
There's brass throughout the album, but that one has a full
that's
quintet.
that's the brass section, you could say. Brass ensemble is in that song.
And it's real. It's not. There's no MIDI on the record. There's no VSTs.
Yeah, we're fortunate that we know a lot of great players here in New York too. That's another thing about being in a place like New York City, is that you're surrounded by a shit ton of great musicians.
You can get them together in a week.
Yeah, you can just you can get guys that don't even know the history of black metal or anything, and then you get them on the album and they kill it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's interesting.
Yeah, I was actually really curious about that too, because New York is such a big city like that, and I'm sure the scene, whether it's metal or not, but music has to be thriving there still, correct?
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's definitely here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good music here. It could also be
fortunate enough to be professional musicians by trade.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to say it could also be detrimental in a sense too, because fans can get jaded because they have access to almost everything.
So jaded.
Any band you could think of, you could see here at some point.
Yeah, that's true. I have a friend who lives up there, and I'm always seeing him at like pretty much every show that's going on, and I'm like, damn, dude, like, how do you have time for that?
Yeah, every show happens in New York, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Probably LA. LA might be like that too.
No tour skips New York.
No.
No.
Yeah, and there's other things on the album too that are, I would say, non-conventional. There's a synth solo in one song that we
analog synth.
Yeah, the real shit. And then there's some piano on there, which is kind of cool. And it kind of hits you as a listener. You're just sort of like, whoa, what is this doing here? It's we're just mixing sounds, just trying to make cool timbres.
Exactly. It's all about timbre, I think.
Yeah.
It's all about, you hear a piece.
There's cool vocal stuff too.
Choirs,
yeah,
all sorts of stuff.
We have some operatic vocal stuff on there, and again, it's all, we try to be tasteful about it because the band is still a guitar, bass, and drums. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what you hear, that's what you feel, and then there's just these things that we can add, and then live we do them some other way.
It needs to be on the record. You know what I mean?
Like you said before, if there's got to be a bass clarinet solo, then you can't,
you have to do it.
Can't deny it.
Yeah. As any composer or writer of music that's listening to this, like, they'll know that you just hear a sound, you hear something in your head, and it's like, oh, it's got to be on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you can't get it, unless you can't get that person or that musician, then you do something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, excuse me. I was thinking of like the Dewey Cox movie where it was like, I need 10,000 didgeridoos. I just hear it in my head and I need it.
Yeah, that might come down to it where we need.
We might need 10,000 didgeridoos on the next album.
I like didgeridoo. I might need
at
least one,
and we might have to record them in Australia.
Yeah,
yeah. My co-host, who I usually do this with, he's in Australia. That's where he lives, and he's from there. So it's usually like I do the interview episodes because it's super hard, like getting all these time zones in line and shit, and it's a pain.
Right.
But
one of our favorite bands is from Australia.
Yeah.
Oh, what band is that?
Portal.
Oh, I kind of thought that's what you were gonna say, but I didn't want to like immediately like assume that's what it was.
No, it's definitely Portal.
Yeah.
Did you think we were going to say AC/DC?
No, actually, for some reason.
Although AC/DC has a place in my world too, but that's definitely Portal that we're talking about.
Yeah. Honestly, for some reason, I thought you were going to say Nick Cave, and I was like, fuck yeah, Nick Cave rules.
Oh, Nick Cave. Yeah, Nick Cave's cool.
Yeah.
Very good.
What is...
But
so with all these different like instruments and stuff like that, man, like when you guys are going into the studio, how do you wrangle all that stuff to like get studio time for that? Because I'm sure that has to be like a pretty large undertaking there.
You figure it out, man. You just do it. It's
all logistics.
It gets crazy. Yeah, it's a total nightmare. But you just do it, and then it gets done, and then you're like, holy shit, we got it.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I mean, at least you guys, well, you say it's a pain in the ass, but at least you guys like have digital nowadays, whereas like fucking who knows how long ago when it was like still analog stuff, and imagine having to record that shit on analog and then cut it together. That would have been a pain in the ass.
Well, the thing that there is another thing actually about this album that we did is we recorded the bulk of it live.
Oh, that's cool, man. I like when bands do that.
We sort of have no choice because the way we play, like we were saying before, that with that room for improv and the stretchiness and this sort of
no click train.
Yeah, no clicks, no grid, and we're trying to get a sound that moves and breathes. We felt we didn't really have a choice. We had to record it live, and it was actually Kenny, I think, who really pushed for it. He was like, he's like, no, fuck it, we're just gonna record live, because and for me being a jazz musician and from that world, that's normal. That's how you do music. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But of course, in the rock world, we always do it with laying a bass and drums down or whatever, doing multi tracks. But we decided to do it that way, and I think that really has a lot to do with the sound of the album. Don't you agree, Zach?
Yeah, I would. I think this kind of recording is very rare in avant-garde heavy metal.
I think there's been like punk bands, they used to do albums live because they didn't care what anything sounded like.
True.
Yeah.
But we went for, we wanted a very specific sound and production, and we didn't mess around. And Colin, who engineered the recording, he's amazing. So
yeah, he was more a part of the record process than he ever has been in the past, and it was really great to have him on our side, I think.
Yeah, what is like that? I've only ever seen like one band in the studio like recording, and like the guy working with him wasn't really like doing anything. It was just kind of letting him record. But it seems like you guys have like a little bit of relationship with this guy, and he can hone in your sound a little better. How much did that help with this record? Like,
oh, I mean, it's huge help. We definitely have a relationship with Colin, and he, things like, let's say we're going for a certain guitar sound for something.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking around the studio, and then Colin, I might just be like, "Oh man, maybe we should use an old Fender amp on this sound just to get this kind of sound." And Colin, he'll jump in and he'll get creative with it, and he'll make it happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. So because he's enjoying, he's into it. He's into it, exactly.
Yeah, I think he's not our producer. He's the engineer.
Yeah.
But he knows us really well. He knows the kind of sound we're going for.
He's also a great musician.
He's an incredible musician, and I think on this record he really dug what we were doing and felt it necessary to speak up when he had an idea or had something that he thought might benefit the record, and we really appreciated that that sort of
interaction, collaboration.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to have someone who knows what it's going to sound like. It's also, more than anyone.
Yeah, it's also cool that he has a wall of amps, and you can just be like, "Let's try that one." You know what I mean? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
Yeah, that's the other thing I'm really curious about too. Is like, what were you guys playing when you were recording? Like, is it different from the gear that you would have live? Like, what's your guitar? What's your bass? You talked about a wall of amps. Like, what did you guys try out? I love knowing about all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think everyone's sound was pretty the same as far as, Kenny brought his drums.
Yeah, Kenny's got this great drum set, which are Yamaha Recording Customs. I'm a huge fan of them. They're from the 80s. They're incredible. He brought those into the studio. That's his main kit. I brought my live rig in. We brought the whole rig in.
Nice.
And just mic'd up. Yeah, I mean, we were like, fuck it, let's just go for this, And so we mic'd it all up. I brought all my pedals. And then Colin put you through two cabs.
Yeah, I played through two amps and mixed the sound because I wanted to have the grittiness of the 5150, but also as I mentioned before, I'm doing a lot of acrobatics with this whammy bar, like the Floyd Rose, and I feel like sometimes if you put too much distortion, you don't get that clarity. So I also went through what was it? I think it was.
I forget what it was. It was a
some sort of.
Was it a Laney?
No, it was like an acoustic amp.
Oh.
Or it was something like that.
It was a weird amp and
with almost no distortion.
Yeah, he ran it kind of clean, and so basically he split the guitar with a clean and distortion sound, but a very specific kind of clean sound. It was interesting.
I can't remember what it was, but basically, yeah, I was able to get this tone that had the clarity of all the bends and wobbling.
The articulation of it, you
but
could
like,
really hear it.
You know, if I played 2 notes, it would have a good crunch. It wouldn't be like super clean.
Yeah. Because the 5150's got such a nice gain.
5150's got
sound.
a great organic tone to it.
That's really cool that you're able to capture that too, because it's, you know, if it's such an important part of your playing style with all the whammy stuff, I mean, being able to capture that perfectly is awesome, and it's really cool that he was able to like figure that out for you and then make it sound really clear like that too.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Ilya, I remember we were doing a demo at my place of when we first started working on the album for, I think it was Lower World, maybe. Right?
Yeah.
And you were already talking about that.
Yeah, I've been
he was already
dreaming of this.
Yeah, he was already talking. You know, the split personality guitar sound, basically.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, sometimes I even on Abyssal Gods, I had him record. I recorded the sound of my pick, like just a mic in front of the pick. So you get that
to get the actual acoustic articulation of the plastic.
Yeah, because on one
strings.
part I was like, I want it to sound like flies, and that's
that's what we try to think of. What do we want something to sound like? You know, there's a part on the album where there's this bass thing, and you know, most listeners probably won't even know that it's a bass, but you know, I just wanted something that sounded like disgusting, filthy shit. You know what I mean? So that's what you put in your head, and then you gotta try to figure out how to manipulate the instrument and the gear to get that sound.
Yeah, I mean, modern guitars and bass, you know, they're electric instruments, and there's so much you can do with it.
So much.
Like I think it's stupid to just think very
and
linearly.
these guys too. Even when I was doing that, would talk to me in rehearsal, you know, sort of not conducting, but pulling more filth out, or whatever you want to call it.
We
both,
what I mean? Like, on the record, we're both playing with slides at one point.
Yeah, you know, we that's another way we help each other out too. So.
It's like, if you gotta play slide guitar on a part, you gotta do it. You know?
Yeah, beneath slide.
It's gotta be done.
Well, when you guys are kind of writing and putting everything together for this record, like, what did you have in mind as far as like thematically and like the overall atmosphere of it? Because I know that's a really important part of everything you guys have kind of done recently too. It's very much apparent in the music. So what did you have anything in mind, or did it just kind of happen?
We definitely have things in mind. I mean, you know,
you never know how it's going to come out.
Yeah,
though.
You don't know, obviously, when you set out to do the album exactly how it's going to end up. That's part of the fun. But
and also, like, I surprised the boys with one song. I did like a little giant steps on the guys.
Okay. Yeah. Ilya brought in a jazz chart, basically, and then we played it down in the studio, and that's on the album.
Yeah. So it was basically the song "Mother Machine."
Mother Machine is the name.
You're basically hearing it the first time it's ever been played together.
Yeah, we never looked at it.
It was never rehearsed. I wrote, you know, this quick chart. And I just said, here, let's press record, see how it sounds.
Yeah.
And it's cool. What happens when if you're gonna track live, you might as well do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome though, to hear something like that.
I mean, we like it, but I'll say one thing. Getting back to your question, you know, the three of us have these conversations all the time about New York City, you know, and the fact that it's the apex of many things that include some great things and then the most evil things anybody could ever imagine, you know?
Yeah.
So we see that as a pretty dark aspect of civilization, but it is the creation of civilization, so to speak, you know?
So part of our culture as well.
It's part of our culture. So, you know, the album is, the sound, of the album, I think is the combination of luxury, luxurious magnificence, and absolute disgusting filth. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I mean you're describing New York pretty perfectly there, I think. But also, yeah, with like the music and the sound you're going for, yeah, that's I've only been to New York like I don't know, probably like 3 or 4 times in my life. Last time I was there was in December of last year, so I don't know. I feel like from the first time I went there to the last time, like the city's gotten a little bit better at least, but humanity itself is kind of still there, and that's the part you have to contend with.
Yeah, I mean, humanity is a mixture, I think, of what I just described in general, obviously.
What do you mean by better?
Well, there's not as many homeless people as I remember from the first time I went there.
Way more
there's a shit ton.
People. Really?
Dustin,
they're everywhere.
I must have gotten lucky then, man.
Yeah, you definitely got
very
lucky.
lucky.
You got real lucky, man.
Everywhere, it's like
you can't escape them.
Yeah, because I remember commenting on it. I was like, dude, I remember there were so many homeless people here last time. And then, like, maybe it's because it was winter, too. There's not as many out, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, hey, it's always been that way. But, the thing about getting back to your question, though, because it's a good question. The other thing is, besides humanity, it's also the control. If you look throughout the history of civilization, the control center has moved around the globe, or control centers. There's a few, I suppose, right? Mm-hmm. And you can say, you can argue that it went from Persia to Cairo to Rome to London to New York, in a sense. You know what I mean? And so if you start looking at that, you can go down some real dark rabbit holes.
Okay, I'm interested a little bit more. Like, what do you mean exactly as far as like?
I'm saying the center of, for lack of a better word, the creators of this civilization that we're all in, that we're part of.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like, top of the pyramid kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense, man. Because I mean.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we know. I'm a regular person, but we're interested. We're fascinated by the story of civilization, whatever that is, both light and dark.
Yeah, and I gotta imagine, like, living in New York, you're seeing the height of it, but it's always evolving at the same time, and I mean, you guys have Wall Street there, you have media, like tons of media, Saturday Night Live and all the late night shows, Broadway, like you have art, you have, if you want to look at like the crux of humanity, you have the most of capitalism right there in New York too, and it's like two different things.
Modern world.
Yeah, it is the apex as of now.
Yeah,
I mean, it'll probably shift in the future somewhere else. Who knows? Who's to say? But it's here, and you can feel it.
Huh. That's interesting. I never really looked at it that way, and now I got like my brain turning here, and I'm like, damn, I never really thought about that. That's cool. So like you infuse that into like kind of the theme and feeling of the new album. Yeah,
I mean, even lyrically too. We write about stuff that we just write about things that we look at. I think Ilya said it great one time in an interview for a magazine that we did, where he said, I forget what you said. It was something like, we're not passing judgment on it necessarily. We're not saying this is good, this is bad, or that we know what is going on, but we're just looking at it. We're observing it.
Yeah, it's just like I'd say it's just an observation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is because we grew up in this city and we kind of seen it evolve, seen everything that's happened, and we want to shine a light on.
Well, you grew up in the city.
Yeah, but you guys...
I'm from the suburbs.
Yeah, but
Kenny's been here a long time.
You've been living here for many years.
Yeah, absolutely.
You grew as a person. But what I mean is, like, we want to... this music's all about darkness to us.
Mm.
That's the simple way to put it. And we think that New York City has a lot of darkness to explore. And we're not done writing.
it's got plenty. It's a wealth of darkness.
Certainly. And I don't think any band has ever sung about this.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree, man. Like, if you think about, like, with that many people in such a small space, you know, there's bound to be, like, the worst of the worst things going on behind closed doors. And, you know, even out in the open, a lot of times you're just you know, you talk about observing and witnessing that, and I can only imagine, like, how that fuels, like, the little bit of extra creativity going into this.
Yeah, it's definitely fuel. I mean, it's one of the most densely populated places on planet Earth, right? And then on top of that, though, you know, just to keep the other side of the coin in sight, like I was saying before about getting the horn players, you know, we also have all these amazing musicians here. All this, there's the good stuff that's here as part of it as well. So I think it all works together.
Yeah, harmonious balance. You got to have it. You know, you can't delve too much into one side of it and leave out, you know, a little bit of the other. It's like finding that perfect balance.
Absolutely, man.
Exactly.
So I guess kind of closing out here a little bit. What are some other things about the record that maybe, like, you would want people to know about, or maybe music you would want people to know about too? That's also important to me and people that listen to this. You know, I think it's finding out about other music, you know, whether it's new bands or old bands or whatever, and then stuff about the new album.
I would say to anyone who's, you know, about to start listening to this record, is like, I would say it's a challenge, and but the other side of the coin is that it has a lot to give, a lot to explore. It's not just, you know, you listen to it for a week and then, you know, put it on the shelf. This is something that you can listen to for years and be discovering new parts that you like, new themes, and it's really a lot to unpack, and we want to make it like that. We tried to make it a simple, just 8 songs, and each song has its own vibe. It's very unique in that sense. And I definitely encourage people to really pay attention, listen closely, and come into it with a very open mind, because it's definitely not like any other record you've heard.
I like that. That's kind of why I've always enjoyed listening to you guys personally, because like I said earlier, I really like to sit down and listen to music and dissect it. So I'm looking forward to it for sure. So that's my end of it, but I hope, and I think people listening to this too, they're definitely going to be stoked on it. I have a pretty good way of getting people into music.
Oh yeah, that's great, man. And one other thing too, Dustin, is that you know, I think I can speak for the three of us. We also, you know, we're into very deep, rich music experience, listening, and, you know, pushing the envelope and trying to find sounds and changing the sonic landscape from what we're familiar with and trying to go places. But we also like good songs. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another thing that drew me in, because, you know, I came into the band about 4 years ago or whatever it was, and that, you know, that has kept me in the project too, is that we're all on the same page. So, you know, hopefully that will get across to the listener too, that the songs are good songs, you know?
Yeah. We definitely thought more about songwriting on this.
Yeah, we're searching for good songs. We're looking to make good songs.
I mean, you know, the first track that you guys have already released, man, that's I think that's enough for me to get into it if I had never heard you guys before. So I'm hoping you know, new listeners could immediately be drawn to that too, because I don't know, I can tell the work that you guys are putting into it, just kind of listening and seeing like the evolution of the band over the years, you know, by listening. But I guess some other people have to discover that and find that out a different way, and hopefully by hearing you guys talk about it, that's another way for them to be like, all right, I should check this out or give this another chance or whatever it may be for them.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people that write into us and they say, you know what, I got this record, it took me 3 listens to really get it, really start appreciating it. Or some people it took years.
Or some people got into it in the first 10 seconds. You know what I mean? Depends on the listener.
It really depends on, you know, where you're at, kind of, you know, musically, because
I know a lot of records of mine that are favorite. You know, one that comes to mind is Chick Corea, Now He Sings, Now He Sobs from 1968, which is his first piano trio album. I don't know if you're familiar with Chick Corea, Dustin, but he's a great musician. But anyway, that took me a long time to get into that album. In fact, when I first listened to it, I didn't even like it. And then it became my favorite, one of my favorite records of all time.
Yeah, I have a lot of bands and albums that's happened to me over the years too, where like I've heard it the first couple times, I'm like, not for me. And then I'll revisit it like 5 years later, 10 years later, who knows? And I'll be like, damn, why did I sleep on this for so long? It's just one of those weird things. Like you need to hear music at the right time, like when you were supposed to hear it. That's what I think, you know?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, and one last thing. I will say this as well to all those listening to Heavy Metal History Podcast, is listen to this record with the best
sound system,
headphones, whatever you can afford or whatever you have. Do it right, because we recorded it in the highest quality we could.
Yeah, a 1/4 centimeter iPhone speaker isn't really gonna express the album.
No.
No, I can imagine, especially with like all the stuff you guys explained to me that's on there. You need some good speakers, some good headphones.
Yeah, get into the album experience.
Treat yourself right.
Yeah.
Respect yourself.
Yes. Agreed.
If you paid for this record, listen to it right.
Oh, I just want to say...
You're not going to eat a steak with your hands.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't bother me about a steak, like Robert De Niro said in Raging Bull. One more thing I just want to add, Dustin, is that, I don't know if you probably know this already, but we have some very cool vinyl options.
Yeah.
For this album.
Oh, hell yeah. I definitely saw those.
I think it's going to be pretty cool, on the collectible side, because we're very psyched about it.
Yeah, that, and we have a ton of merch coming out soon. We're gonna have a merch store as well.
We're gonna we'll have a new merch store soon. We're building it right now. It's gonna, it's a big job, and we're pretty psyched to work with Gilead Media and Throat Ruiner over in Europe. So it's coming together.
Yeah,
we want to give fans a full package experience.
Absolutely,
music, merchandise, a whole world to kind of get into, because that's the kind of bands that I like, and I kind of want to. I feel like we have a platform for that.
Yeah, we want to expand that world to the next album.
Exactly.
Yeah, you guys have like very limited merch stuff, because like I'm really picky about what shirts I will buy now, especially like getting older. So the one thing that you guys had that I was like immediately like I bought as soon as I could was your logo pin, that gold logo pin. That thing is phenomenal.
That was Ilya's idea, and I remember when he presented it to me, and I was immediately like, "This rules."
Yes.
I love these pins. We love the pins. We love them.
Yeah.
People
those
love
are always
to buy
going
them.
To be in stock.
Yes, they sell like crazy.
Oh yeah, dude, I wear it all the time, and like I switch it out on different things, and people always ask me what it is, and I'm like, well, it's a band. I don't know if you'll like them, but you should check it out either way, because it's eye catching, man. It's gold. It's big.
Dustin, it's got style, that pin. It's cool to wear. You know what I mean? It's a styling.
My parents
piece.
wear them.
Yeah, I gave one to my mom.
Yeah, my dad wears it all the time.
So actually, I guess one last thing: who's been like kind of designing like your logos and artwork and stuff like that? Because that stuff's, man, it's really good.
We work with the same artist. His name is Andrew Tremblay.
Okay.
And he is phenomenal. We've been working with him since 2012, but he's finally starting to do. And he was working a lot with DJs, and now he's finally breaking into like I think he did stuff with Black Dahlia Murder and Revocation. He's starting to do other heavy metal bands, and he's just phenomenal because he's so versatile. And
this new his treatment of this new album cover is I think it's amazing.
He really he gets what we want. He knows what we want.
Yeah.
So we don't have to really tell him.
I think it's beautiful.
We don't have to be too bossy.
And he's great. He's just great pleasure to work with. He's super cool.
Absolutely.
And then I want to mention one other person who's helped us out quite a bit is this guy J.R. Patterson, who he 3D
designed and was the guy who basically made our masks be possible.
Oh, yeah.
That was actually a big job.
They're
That took us almost a year to get those masks figured out and developed, and and they're still evolving. They're still evolving.
But yeah, those are all custom-made masks.
Yeah. So, but we're fortunate. We have some really very brilliant people helping us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell, man. But I mean, at the same time, like your guys are like the idea factory there too. But it's awesome that you have all these people kind of bringing those ideas to life and really kind of like cohesively putting together this vision in your head of the band, and it's awesome. I don't know. It's like I said, it's one of the many things that like draw me to your guys' music and kind of how you present everything. So I dig it, man. I don't know. I hope everybody else will too.
Thank you, Dustin.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, guys. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. When does the record come out so people listening can go do that? We'll obviously like link to everything in our like website and Facebook and all that stuff too, but just people listening can go find it.
I believe it drops worldwide July 13th.
Okay. Awesome.
And pre-orders for vinyl and digital and CD are available online.
And you said it was through Gilead?
The American distribution is through Gilead, and European is through Throat Ruiner.
Okay, cool. Well, Steve, Ilya, thank you again for doing this. I appreciate you guys' time. I'm looking forward to the record very much, and I hope it does very, very well for you guys. So, thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thanks so much, Dustin.
Time.
Yeah.
Stand before the
excellent to each other.
And party on, dude!